this was in Truthout, which is an Indie Media Award honoree. That is not the sound that we're used to hearing for that. I don't know what's going on with your soundboard.
Yes, it is. That's literally that sound.
That's not what I just heard. I hear bzz, bzz. I think it's accelerated. Are you at like 5 times speed? Are you at like 5x speed, dude?
No.
Okay. In a historic first, workers unionize at 2 major farmers market nonprofits. So it's like happening. It's happening. This is in Truthout, like I said. Ella Fassler, despite providing essential services, wages and benefits for these workers lag far behind those of other city workers. So you've got our farmers market workers. That was at Plant Masters in Columbia Heights, D.C. So Colin probably has been to these. But this year, workers from Grow NYC and Fresh Farm, 2 sustainable food access nonprofits in New York City and the Washington, D.C. metro area, respectively, formed unions. Workers who support and organize farmers markets, compost programs, and other initiatives will begin collectively bargaining for higher wages and job scrutiny in the coming months for the first time in the history of the industry. So in New York City, it all began last spring with a few informal conversations during a period of organizational turmoil at Grow NYC, which is, I've never heard of, a nonprofit that makes about 70 green market.
I think I have.
They organize about 70 green market farmers markets. City's composting program, food box programs sourced from local farms in lower income areas, educational programs about zero waste and community gardens and more. Wow. And their jobs aren't easy. It sounds like they're not. Farmers market workers set up and break down tents. They manage the EBT food stamp system and ensure that busy markets run smoothly, sometimes working 12-hour days. Individual vendor tents are run by farmers and distributors, not Grow NYC. Compost drivers wake up at dawn to navigate notoriously difficult streets of New York City. Yeah, well, the later they have to go, the more traffic they have to deal with. All right, so they are workers who are providing essential services to the city. And that's one of the compost site coordinators who was involved in the early stages of unionizing. And they are receiving money city money to provide essential services. That's awesome. It's easy to look at MTA workers or sanitation workers who are doing really similar stuff and look at the benefits that they have compared to what these people have. It's very easy to see that they're being exploited. My answer is wrap it into one of those other organizations. That way you can pay them the same. But in addition to discussing exploitation, some workers talked about how management lacked an understanding of day-to-day realities on the ground, a problem typical of many hierarchical organizations. Yeah, we've certainly talked about that here. Others lamented their seasonal or part-time status, right? Look, in hierarchical status organizations, horizontal organizations seem to be better, but somebody's got to step up and lead at some point. And I'm not sure exactly how that works. Somebody has to be like designated as the leader by every
diagonal. How about diagonal? We go with diagonal.
Well, then there's
instead of horizontal or vertical.
Circular firing squad, right? There's that type of yeah. So some people have the opinion that it's not going to be useful to have police at the markets, right? And we need something a little bit better when it comes to dealing with security. And that's for sure. Right? These discussions quickly evolved into
Hell's Angels probably would do a better job.
Well, first they talked about security, then they evolved into more formal meetings with the intent of unionizing, and more coworkers were invited to the meetings, and it's just grown and grown and grown to the point where we have a super majority of support, and we outgrew the space where we were meeting. We've been having larger meetings every week. This is organizing. Wow, folks. Like actual workers getting together every week, dedicated to working together and, getting more out of, in this case, the city. So Citra Bowman, who's a Grow NYC education and engagement lead in the Zero Waste Schools Department, she told Truthout that workers approached her about the union in February of this year, and she was immediately interested, especially in light of management's rejection of her and her coworkers' request for a pay raise.
Yeah.
Unreal. So she was also thinking about the benefits that she has as a full-time worker in general, and how some of her coworkers in other departments don't get those benefits because of their part-time status. So on April 25th, only about a year after Hotchkiss and his workers started organizing, nearly 200 of Grow NYC's employees, which is the overwhelming majority, sought voluntary recognition of their union through the RWDSU, which is the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, which is the same union that organized the Amazon Alabama workers last year and recently won election filings at 3 Barnes & Noble stores and 3 REI stores. Well, my guess is that Barnes & Noble isn't going to be around much longer, but that's my own guess, personally. I hope that they are, but
Alabama.
for those workers. But yes, Alabama, as you love to say. After 24 hours passed without the union receiving voluntary recognition, workers filed for a union election with the NLRB. So while Grow NYC's president and CEO Marcel Van Uyen said that the nonprofit would accept the union in a statement, it also hired the infamous union-busting firm Littler Mendelsohn. Wow.
Yes.
I'm having a tough time on this. Littler Mendelsohn.
Dude, there's.
Thanks. And for a couple weeks, it was unclear whether a struggle was on the horizon. So shortly after releasing the statements, Grow NYC disputed its employees' characterization of their jobs, according to the New York Times, and claimed its lowest paid worker earned $20 an hour, not $19, as workers had said. Van Uyen makes $270,000 a year, according to tax filings from the nonprofit. Okay? So then on May 16th, Grow NYC workers announced that their union had won recognition. Cool. Workers at Grow NYC will begin bargaining their first contract swiftly as a result. Companies at any time can voluntarily recognize a worker union. Doing so expedites the process of union representation and the pathway to a union contract. I mean, that's the key. And somebody was actually saying on Twitter that it takes an average of like over 400 days from the time that a union election happens till a first contract is negotiated with the company usually. Just months prior, Fresh Farm, which is the nonprofit in the DC area, went through a similar process. So now you've got a template for this. On February 8th, 23, about 25 farmers market workers announced the formation of a union with the UFCW, Local 400. Right? Fresh Farm's leadership did not interfere with the organizing process, and workers will collectively bargain for better pay and more job stability, according to DCist, which is kind of a Libby magazine, to be honest. But they also do some really good investigative stuff. We've covered a couple of their articles over the years on, God, it's already been, we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary at the end of the summer, folks. So both successful union drives come at a time of resurging interest in labor organizing. The NLRB reported a 53% increase in election petitions from fiscal year 21 to 22. So we see that, and according to Gallup's most recent poll, 71% of Americans approve of labor unions, right, which is the highest recorded figure since 1965. That's awesome. Great. Approving of them is one thing. Actually, like, organizing to join them is different, but nonprofits are among the industries seeing increasing election filings, with workers often citing low pay, overwork, and undemocratic workplaces. In some cases,
they've been exploited, non-profit. Like, I mean, it's almost like it said it above, but Zordon, it's okay. It's gonna be all right.
Telegram.
How do I ignore? Do not disturb. There we go.
So in some cases, progressive employers, TYT, weaponize their own organization's charitable mission. No, they don't. They're not charitable. against their own workers in attempts to sabotage organizing. Right. Well, we're a nonprofit. Don't make us pay anymore because then we won't be able to have as many people. We won't be able to provide as many services. They start to hold you hostage. Many young people organizing their workplaces are not only seeking better material conditions, but also democratizing their workplaces, sometimes altering the nature of their work. At White Electric, which is a cafe in Providence, Rhode Island, workplace demands for racial equity in the wake of the George Floyd uprising led to a unionization effort, which eventually resulted in the workers taking over the cafe and transforming it into a co-op. Hell yeah.
Good.
Bowman said influencing the direction of the nonprofit is part of a bigger conversation that has been brought up a bit in the union. Yeah, that'd be good. We're thinking about our mission and how we can help support that mission and make it more sort of profound and really community-oriented versus something that's top-down, said Bowman. I like hearing that. All right. So many Grow NYC workers are passionate about food justice and hoping that unionization will help them better serve this mission. And they said they took on this job because they're passionate about the environment and food access and wanting to serve better, to better serve people. This is Menjivar. Right. And as I was only able to do so much with what I was given, I have a better outlook on the future and also on the job of being able to serve people better. I mean, really, they're practically volunteers. I mean, they get paid, but they get paid a lot less than all these other city workers. So shout out to all these organizing. These are farmers market workers that get paid, but they're getting paid less than other people that are delivering services to seniors and to other, to EBT eligible folks. So it's possible that labor organizing at Grow NYC at Fresh Farm will spark a national trend within the industry. Let's hope so. Many other U.S. cities have similar organizations. In Boston, Farmers Markets supports more than 200 markets, advocates for increased grants to support fresh food access, and manages 3 farmers markets. So there's all these different co-ops or sustainable economic enterprises, and Green City Market in Chicago, and Heart of the City Farmers Market. I had no idea that there were like they're nonprofit. Okay, so Heart of the City is managed cooperatively by the farmers themselves with the mission of making fresh food accessible for low-income customers. That's incredible. So despite popular support of unions, the portion of workers who are unionized, just 10.1%, is a record low. That's the thing I wanted to talk about, which is that, like, we're all hot and bothered and everybody's excited about unions, but 10.1%. Man. We could unionize Amazon or Walmart.
What about the 10%?
Nationwide. That's the goal. We've got to get one of these top level mass employers to organize and unionize across all their facilities and all roles. And that's going to be hard. I mean,
yep.
Already you've got Amazon, you've got Teamsters in some facilities, you've got RWDSU in some facilities, you've got Amazon Labor Union, you've got SEIU, you've got there's another one, the one in North Carolina, Amazon Cause. And those are just the ones that we know about, that I know about myself. And I'm sure there are others. I'm guessing AFL-CIO is probably trying to do something with them as well. So it's all the major labor organizations are trying to help organize Amazon. But what they're not necessarily doing is bring it all together. I know that the Teamsters, for example, have made it a concerted effort to organize the drivers for Amazon and the pilots for Amazon and the transportation workers, for example, but not necessarily the office workers or the warehouse workers. And then you're going to be pitting union against union within the organization, and that's when you have real problems. And I think that might be the goal of the neoliberals, of government, of not only that, it creates a level of middle management infrastructure across all of these unions that all have different, interests and different primary interests. It's really complicated. Obviously. What do you think, man?
Labor, like it just seems. Well, I mean, I know you know what I mean. It's just like terrible. Like, where are their tactics? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is big labor doing? What are they doing? Where are they?
Yeah. Well, RWDSU was helping these guys. So you've got some big
quote,
labor
unquote,
involved, but that's their
help.
local. That's the local. I don't know how much involvement they're getting from national and how far down the chain this flows. But RWDSU also began representing 12 workers at a Long Island vineyard, which is the first farm workers union in New York State. 2 years after that law was passed, which is the Farm Laborers Fair Practices Act. Farm Laborers Fair Labor Practice, FLPA, from New York State. It is illegal for farmers to unionize in most states, for example. Did you know that?
I'm sure Monsanto has written all those checks.
Wonder why. I guess that could technically create a monopoly on food if you have a union
brothers
of... Yeah, but if you have a union of actual farmers that could control the bananas market, for example.
Sure.
So, the orange market.
I don't know.
But Grow NYC sees itself as part of these larger agricultural struggles. Right? They see workers at Trader Joe's. They see workers like the United Farm Workers who have also been organizing.
What the farmers in Netherlands, in the Netherlands, have been doing, and the Dutch farmers, and that kind of like unionization effort of them.
They've been protesting the government and getting arrested.
If you can call it that. Yeah.
There was another unionization story that I have here real quick, that Loma Linda University medical residents are voting yes on a union. So unionization is happening across all different industries and different types of workers that people hadn't even really thought about unionizing before. And that's something else that I wanted to point out as a part of this story. That they won after years of hard work. They finally did it. All right. That in the culmination of a months-long organizing effort, resident physicians at Loma Linda University Health, that's LLUH, and that's which they say throughout the rest of the thing, they voted to unionize on June 22nd. And that historic vote is the latest chapter in the most prominent recent showdown between a Seventh-day Adventist healthcare institution and organized labor. So we talked about the nurses at Ascension. Here's another one at Loma Linda University. Again, using their religious nonprofit. According to the NLRB, the final margin was 361 in favor and 144 against. Approximately 2/3 of the 805 eligible resident physicians submitted a ballot. So after years of hard work, they finally did it. That's awesome. So the outcome is not yet certified and is subject to review, including in federal court. And you can be sure that Loma Linda and the Seventh-day Adventists will try to stall and drag and do all the union busting tactics that everybody else does and likely challenge that as well. Let's see. Organizers first collected enough signatures. So, they have to do cards and collect cards in February. But LLUH, like I said, challenged the effort in court and in NLRB proceedings. Throughout a 12-day hearing in March and April, they made their case to the NLRB that medical residents are students rather than employees, and that as a religious education institution, it can't be forced to negotiate with a union. Is that like how they had to throw out the money changers from the church? Is that literally what they're saying here? Wow.
Maybe.
In a separate lawsuit against the NLRB, beginning in federal district court and later appealed to the Court of Appeals of the DC Circuit Court, LLUH made similar arguments, but on May 25th, a panel of 3 judges denied their request for an emergency injunction and expedited appeal. With the court declining to intervene, the union vote was set to continue. So that's from Portside, also a good outlet. During the lead up to the election, LLUH continued to try and convince residents to vote no. And they said that voting for the union is a yes vote to giving away your voice to a union with no experience dealing with private, religious, educational institutions. That's what one union busting brochure said. All right, quote, are you leaving a legacy or years of legal issues? Wow. Interviews with Spectrum, who picked this up via Portside, or who Portside picked this up from, right? Residents in favor of unionization have cited long hours, poor working conditions, and low pay as motivating factors. LLUH increased the benefits package for residents in early this year, which is a move that some have said was too little too late. Literally too little, and definitely too late. Their religious status has also been a key element of the labor hearings and court cases. The institution cited writings by Ellen White against unions and elicited testimony from the Adventist leaders about the church's historical anti-union stance. Why? The union countered...
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep. The union countered that medical residency programs don't require participants to be members of the Adventist church or promote any specific Adventist teachings. Okay, so then why do they get nonprofit status then? According to one document shared during the NLRB hearing, less than 20% of the approximately 800 residents are Adventist. I'm not surprised. Are there 800 resident Adventist residents across the entire country? I would guess probably not. Maybe in a country of 300 million, but I don't know. A corporate restructuring in 2012 has factored into these arguments. The Loma University Health Education Consortium, this is where it gets really legal and businessy, and I don't want to get into all this, but they formed a separate legal entity from the medical center and the rest of the university. Right? So past legal cases have granted stronger religious freedom claims to educational institutions rather than healthcare facilities. So this now is its own, a health education consortium. So yeah, it's now considered like an educational institution. So that's one of the reasons why they separate that, is so they can get away with that nonsense.
We gotta keep them separated.
Man, so this month, 2,500 residents and fellows at Mass General Brigham, which is one of the largest programs, voted to form a union also. That's awesome. 10,000 members in the last 2 years have been added to the Committee of Interns and Residents, which is the largest resident union in the United States. So again, we've got medical residents organizing. We've got farmers market workers organizing. We've got nurses that are already organized that are walking out and starting to really demand change from their employers. And I think they're going to get it. I mean, unless those hospitals can find a way to hire scabs, they're going to get it. Because where else are they going to get these qualified nurses? They need to provide care. And the good thing, actually, in this case, for capitalism, is that these are for-profit corporations and that all these executives want to retain their jobs. And if people aren't working and the company's not making money, guess what? They're going to end up losing their jobs in the end. So they've got to get this fixed.